Hello, everyone. This is Bill Apter, and I just finished taping an episode of Count It Out with Mike and Tyler, or Tyler and Mike. They're brilliant hosts. You've got to listen. You've got to see. Count It Out. Yeah, I endorse it. They've got the After Chat seal of approval.
This is Rapid Delivery Rory Fox, and you're listening to Count It Out with Mike and Tyler.
Well, we are live, pals, and welcome to a very patriotic edition of Count It Out with Mike and Tyler. The Bill Apter seal of approved Count It Out with Mike and Tyler, that is. My name is Tyler, and I am joined, as always, by Mojito Mike. Mike, how you doing, brother?
Not only am I famous in Mexico, I could be famous on your chest. All over your chest. That's where I like to be, on your chest. That get your mind out of the gutter. I'm talking about t-shirts, baby.
That's right. We are on ProWrestlingTees.com now. Head over there, get your new Count It Out with Mike and Tyler swag. We got the shirt there with half our faces on it. Who wouldn't want to walk around with our faces on them?
Man, already quite a few people obviously wanted it. We sold a decent number in our first week. I'm very happy with it.
Yes, thank you to everybody that purchased. And if you haven't purchased, shame on you. Pause this and go buy. Actually, you can keep listening to us while you buy a shirt.
Exactly.
Right.
If you want to go straight there, go to ProWrestlingTees.com/CountItOut7. Very easy, very, very, very. You can have it ready to be shipped to you tomorrow, and with the click of a button in the next couple minutes.
That's right. And while you're clicking on buttons, please like, subscribe to everything. It really helps us out. We're on the way to 300 subs for YouTube, so help us get there. That'd be fantastic.
Absolutely.
So big show this week. I said patriotic because we are talking to the Mountie, Jacques Rougeau. Finally, I know we've been hyping this someone up for a couple weeks. Probably about a month ago, I sat down with Mr. Rougeau. We're going to talk about a whole bunch of stuff on the week that he pinned Hulk Hogan as well. That was about 20 years ago, 97.
And you know what? We've been sitting on this interview for a bit. And I think everything happens for a reason. We were sitting on this, not for this reason, but I guess it all works out that by the time we were able to put it out, as of today, the day we're recording this is the day in history, April 11th, that he pinned Hulk Hogan.
That's right. So, and we have a great clip of that if you can't wait for the interview to honor you. Whoa, bless your soul.
Excuse me.
Bless your soul. Yeah, I can't wait. You know, Jacques talks about his whole career in WWF. We get some great Montreal stories, Andre the Giant stories. Great time we had talking with Jacques. I can't wait for you to hear it. I know you haven't listened to it yet.
And he's got a new TV show or a new is it a TV show? Is that exactly what it is?
They're still figuring out if it's going to get picked up on TV, but he's got the Jacques Rougeau Wrestling Academy coming out with QT Marshall. We talk all about it in the interview. Really fun stuff. We hear from Bret Hart, comments from Bret Hart, comments from QT Marshall. So
some of our friends and favorite indie guys are involved in this. So please check that
Clay
out
Wilson,
when it comes around.
Clay Wilson, Jody Thread are involved with this. Matthew Grant, I believe.
Friend of the show, Jeremy Prophet.
Jeremy Prophet, that's right. And of course, the All Ontario Cup winner at the Count Out 7 bracket, Clutch Jesse V, all involved with this project. So support all this. It's going to be good. Speaking of support, before we get to the interview, because you and I are going to talk after this, some really, really awful news coming out from one of our good friends and a longtime friend of the show, the one and only Rory Fox. Unfortunately, he ripped his quad off the bone, suffered a terrible injury. He's not going to get his match with Matt Cardona that was just announced. That's 13 years in the making.
This guy has been talking about nothing but this match with Matt Cardona as long as we've known him. You know what I mean? And we've become a little close with Rory over the last 2 years, and he's quickly become not only one of our favorite indie guys, but one of our favorite guys. Like he's such a down to earth dude. he doesn't play that whole, hey man, I used to be on WWE. He doesn't give a shit. He's such a cool guy. A worse thing couldn't happen to a nicer guy.
Yeah, Rory, we're all thinking of you, man. We're hoping for a successful and a speedy recovery. If you guys are able to, please support Rory. He's going to miss work now, because he still wrestles on a part-time, borderline full-time basis, but, he's still working a normal job as well. And as we all do, it's tough. The world's tough out there. And unfortunately, he's going to miss time for that. Please, guys, if you're able to, donate to his GoFundMe campaign. Just type in Rory Fox GoFundMe. It will come up. Buy a t-shirt on Pro Wrestling Tees. Help him out. Direct message him. Get an autograph picture. Anything that you guys are able to do to help out Rory Fox. Mike and I are trying to think of some fun ideas that we can help out as well.
Listen, we did something for Lufisto a while back when she was having some troubles. There's no reason why we wouldn't do something for a good friend like Rory. So we keep tuned here. We will think of something in the next week or two, and we will be putting it up on countingout7.com in our charity page that we have there. So we will be doing something for our good friend Rory.
Absolutely. And Rory, if you are listening to this, man, we love you over here. We hope for the best for you, speedy recovery, and just grind this one out, man, because you're going to come back better than everybody. We know it. All the best to Rory Fox.
Absolutely.
And, unfortunately, there's no positive segue. Usually I pride myself on being the segue guy, as you guys heard last week, but I don't have a segue for this, man. But what do you think? You ready to let the people in and hear this interview with Jacques Rougeau?
I'm ready to get in. It's you did this interview like 2 months ago, and I still haven't heard it.
Yeah, well then, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, here's my conversation with the Mountie, Jacques Rougeau. Ladies and gentlemen, what an exciting episode we have for you today. We are joined by one of the most famous Canadian families of all time. He is a former WWF Intercontinental Champion, a former 2, 3, or 4-time tag team champion, depending on how you believe the first Montreal Screwjob went. He is a Mountie. He is one of my personal favorites, Mr. Jacques Rougeau. Jacques, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, how you doing, Tyler? Thanks for having me on your show.
I'm so honored to have you here. You are one of the biggest legends in all of Canada. The amount of respect that we have for you on our show and your entire family cannot be put into words.
Well, thank you. That's very kind of you. Thank you.
So there's so much stuff to talk about with you, but I kind of want to start with what you're working on right now, because I think you have this amazing project going on right now, the Jacques Rougeau Wrestling Academy. It's going to be coming about the spring of 2022. Is that where you're looking at there?
Yeah. Month of May. Probably around the month of May, yeah.
So can you tell our listeners what exactly it is that you're doing here, and just this amazing thing that you're doing to give back to the business and help shine a light on some great talent in Canada?
Well, it all started with a show up in Montreal called Star Academy, which was for singers. And, they had a competition where they would eliminate singers and go to the end. And I'm very inspired by music in life. And then I started thinking, wow, what a great deal if we did that with wrestling, And so I started reaching out across Canada to the talent. And what I'm doing is called Wrestling Academy 2022. If those want to follow us, it's wrestling-academy.ca. And it's a competition where there's 42 participants, men and women, which are going to be in a 12-week show. And every show, from show to show, there's going to be 4 that's going to be eliminated. And the last 4 that are left are going to win $5,000 each. And they're going to have a chance to go at the Nightmare Factory with QT Marshall for 3 months. They have a session for 3 months. And it's so funny because when I approached QT Marshall about 8 months ago, the only thing I wanted was 1 day. I wanted my talent to go down there and to be evaluated in the ring, out of the ring, a microphone and everything, and to see if they had potential to make it in the big leagues. And as we went along, as we showed podcasts, I did podcast over podcast around the planet. QT Marshall started getting some calls from and then he called me, said, "Hey, Jacques, what are you doing?" He says, "I'm getting all these calls at the Nightmare Factory." And he says, "This is great." So he says, listen, he says, why instead of just giving you 1 day to your winners, why don't we go ahead and give them a week? So I went crazy. I started writing all my talent across Canada and said, hey, we got a week now. You know, QT Marshall likes the deal. And just 2 weeks ago, he did another promo for me, which I think you have with you. I'm not sure if you have it.
Yeah, well, as soon as you finish your point, I'm going to play it right immediately.
Okay, so you know, we're supposed to we went from 1 day to 1 week, and then he just sent this video. You could go ahead and listen carefully to what he just gave us now.
Okay, we're going to play that right now.
Hey everybody, this is QT Marshall from All Elite Wrestling and one of the owners of one of the best training facilities in the world, the Nightmare Factory. And I wanted to give a quick shout out to Nick, who runs a Rise podcast, and this evening has Jacques Rougeau on there. And Jacques has a great project in the works. I'm excited about it. In fact, the Nightmare Factory has even told Mr. Rougeau that the winners of this project will receive a special 3-month, 12-week scholarship to the Nightmare Factory, which has seen athletes from all over the world come train with us. And honestly, some have signed contracts with major wrestling organizations in the world, such as AEW and stuff like that. So I'm excited for this project. I think it's a great for aspiring professional wrestlers all throughout Canada. I support it, and I hope that if all works out well, I'll be able to come up to Montreal and partake in being one of the judges of this special project. So good luck to everyone. Just wanted to say hello. Just wanted to let everybody know that it is me, and we are offering this scholarship to the winners. So you can read into it whatever you want, but you've heard it straight from the horse's mouth. It is true. And again, good luck to everyone, and hopefully see you soon.
Wow. I mean, isn't that amazing? 3 months. Now that changes the whole game now, because QT Marshall, by offering 3 months to the 4 winners, you know, when it was 1 day, I always told myself, you know, a lot of talent's going to be nervous to go down there because you don't have a second chance to make a first impression. And, you know, I was saying people are going to go there and they're going to have a dry throat. They're going to be so nervous and intimidated. And then when he gave me a week, I said, wow, that's awesome, because if you mess up on Monday, you got Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday to make up. But now 3 months, this changes everything, because I think QT Marshall is now taking this project like his own pet project. And you know, so he's really putting a lot into it. To put 3 months, you know, there's 4 winners. That's $18,000 US that he's giving me for the contest, and plus 3 months of his time and knowledge and everything else. So what that means, I always said to myself, there's 2 ways that 2 things you need to get in the business. Like in hockey and everywhere else, sometimes it's not how good you are, but it's who you know. And the second thing I always thought in my business is that being at the right place at the right time.
Absolutely.
So if they spend 3 months with QT Marshall there, where all the AEW wrestlers come and train every day, and then many superstars go train there, so my talent eventually are going to become friends with these guys, you know. And so and QT is going to really take a liking out of all these personalities that are going to be there. So it's going to really give them a good chance. If they behave well and if they're nice to QT, I honestly think now at this point that maybe a couple of my 4 winners could make it to the big league. So that's just amazing. And this project is so good, because the way we're going to do this is we're not going to be judging the contest by winners or losers, because we're going to get in the dressing room early that morning, going to flip a coin. And then whoever goes over, then the other guy is going to take 60% of the match, because I want to make sure that their marketing value stays good, whether you win or lose. It's all going to be judged morely on your technique, your ability in the ring, your microphone, how you're good on the mic, your charisma, you know, and that's very, very important. So you got 3 judges around the ring at each show that we're going to have. They're going to judge at 40%. They're going to judge, but at 60%. This is amazing. From Australia, from Italy, from Europe, from anywhere in the world, people will be able to pick up their phone and text in to see who they want to keep and who they want to get rid of.
I love it.
Know, so it's going to be an interactive thing, and it's amazing, because there's only 4 winners out of this contest. But like I always said, they're all winners, because for the last 8 months, their video's been up. QT Marshall's been checking the talent. Everybody around the world that I've been doing podcasts are checking the talent. So they're making a name for themselves right now for the last 8 months. So there's going to be no losers. But you know what? For me, it would be such an amazing thing that 2 of my talents makes it to the big leagues. And that would be I think it's just for me, it's just passing the torch now. And helping everybody, and there's so many things that are involved. Like a lot of the people, if you're my Facebook friends, you'll see a lot of newspaper ads and interviews on the radio with all my talent. I'm booking them with all the connaissance that I have in the business. And so they're making these great articles on these people that are living a dream. I have one guy in St. Sophie, not far from here, Ian Harrison, he did 3 interviews this week. He was never seen nowhere. And one of the newspapers is going to be delivered right in his mailbox.
Oh, that's
so
amazing.
You know, imagine in his own little town, he's going to be like a hero. So everything that we're doing about this contest is just amazing.
Well, we definitely are going to be cheering for some of our local favorites as well. Clay Wilson is in the competition. Clutch Jesse V is a monster. We love him. And I'll definitely be bringing those guys on the show to talk about everything. Jody Threat is another one. She is a fantastic talent.
She's good. She's good.
You've got
all good potential winners there. You have also 100%. Good potential winners. And we're working right now on a TV deal also in Quebec. So not only it's going to be on my platform and YouTube around the world, but it's going to be hopefully on TV. We're having a second meeting with this production company, which we talked to about a couple of weeks ago, and we told them, hey, let us know if you're interested or not. And now they called us just yesterday, and they texted us, said we'd like to meet again. So that's a good sign, you know.
We need to get that on TV so I can have a show to watch with my girlfriend that's not American Idol, you know. This is for me. This is for me.
So it's really a great thing. And then one thing that's also very, very fun is the last show, there's going to be 8 contestants left. And it's going to be 1 girls match, 1 males match, and 1 tag team match. It's like that almost on every show. So there'll be 4 against 4, actually, in 3 different matches. But QT Marshall, he's going to come and he's going to be the judge on the last show.
Oh, nice.
So he's going to be there to crown the 4 winners. And then he's taking them down for 3 months to this Nightmare Factory, which is one of the greatest schools in North America.
Absolutely.
So what a great opportunity. And the other thing, too, that's fun about this project, a lot of independent companies in Canada for wrestling, they don't know each other. So now by doing this contest, everybody subscribes and following this thing. So now one day, they're just going to go click on my wrestling-academy.ca and they'll see, example, Jordy Taylor in Vancouver, and they'll look at him and, wow, and this promoter's in Halifax, the other end of the country completely. They'll say, hey, this guy's talent, I like him. Why don't we reach him? So they're going to pass to me. I'm going to pass the phone call to them. And hopefully I'll be able to get some bookings also for different territories, for different local people in indies.
You know, I can just see the excitement coming through and hear it in your voice. And it's got me pumped up for this too. This is a really amazing thing that you're doing, Jacques.
Well, you know, there's the fun about this too is, like, you know, we all have idols in life. I have idols and people that I look up to. And if you go on my website, sorry if I say it again, wrestling-academy.ca, I won't say it enough because you could go see all the contestants, but you're also going to go see the old timers like me. And there's a bunch of them that are giving good words of encouragement. So those guys that are in the ring, you're all talking about, Clay Wilson and all those guys, Jody Threat and Johnny V, they grew up watching these superstars like Coco Beware, Jake the Snake. You got Ricky Steamboat. You got Tito Santana, the $1 Million Man, Lanny Poffo. You got MMA, Georges St. Pierre. You know, you got singers. You got different eras, different organizations or entertainment that are joining in this and wishing good luck to all the Canadian wrestlers. So take the time, you fans out there, and go see how it's fun to be motivated by tugboats on there. Boop, boop.
Ronnie Garvin, one of my personal favorites.
Biggest feuds we had in Montreal is my brother Raymond and I against the Garvins.
Oh, I can't wait. We're gonna talk about that in detail because that's one of my favorites.
So all this to say that what great motivation for these young talent that are going on the website and they're seeing all these guys that are talking, like Bret Hart. I think you have a video of Bret. Maybe we could show that too. That's incredible.
You know what? What better time to do it than right now?
All right, thank you.
Hey, this is Bret the Hitman Hart, and I want to wish all the best to Jacques Rougeau and his Wrestling Academy 2022. I know they got a big event coming up, a big contest, and a great opportunity for wrestlers across Canada, men and women, to train and maybe win $5,000 and ultimately get a chance to train with QT Marshall and the Nightmare Factory and maybe get a chance to maybe wrestle for AEW. But all I know is this is a great opportunity for every young wrestler, and I want to just thank Jacques Rougeau for putting the idea together. I hope it works out really well, and may the best wrestlers win.
Wow.
That's Bret Hart, man. Best there is, best there was, best there will be. Not too good to beat you though, because you took the IC title from him.
Yeah, but let's be honest now. He's the most iconic wrestler that ever came out of Canada.
Fair.
And, and for him to encourage all these young wrestlers like that, it means a lot. We're talking about credibility now. QT Marshall saying, hey, come on for 3 months. Bret Hart saying, go, guys, go, guys. I have Jake the Snake on there, too. It's amazing all the talent that are wishing good luck to. So yes, Bret Hart, we have a long, long history. And I remember when I came in 1986 with my brother Raymond, we actually started wrestling against the Hart Foundation, Jim the Anvil Neidhart, with Jimmy Hart as their manager for 2 years around the world. And then finally we turned heels, and then we became the All-American Boys, and then they turned babyface. So we worked another 2 years against them around the world. So, and plus Bret, I worked with him for the Intercontinental title, where I don't know if you remember that, if you've seen this, but at one point, he doesn't want to give me a title shot. So I'm outside of the ring and I'm asking him, why is it not a title shot? And I keep bugging him. I don't want to get in the ring. So finally I tell him, I said, come out of the ring and tell me to my face why this is not a title match. So he comes out in the front and he gets the mic off of me and he goes to speak. And then he calls me a jailbird, because I just finished a run with the Big Boss Man. So that's why I'm not giving you it, because you're a jailbird. And then Jimmy Hart comes with a pail of water and he shoots it on him. He's soaking wet. And then I come in with my zapper and I zap the hell out of him. And wow, what a moment. You talk about a great moment in wrestling for me and Bret. And but then, when I took the title from him, I got to be honest with you, I am the shortest lived reign of the Intercontinental. I only had it for 2 days. But what's amazing about that, Tyler, is everywhere I go for Comic-Cons around the world, all the time for the last 30 years, they always have pictures of me signing where the Intercontinental title is around my waist.
100%.
And I only had it for 2 days. So it's amazing how it stuck with me and people remembered that character. It was an awesome character.
Oh, it was fantastic. And I want to talk about that in great detail. And before I get into that a little bit, though, I want to go back even a little bit further, because I'd love to talk about your time in Montreal. And you mentioned it, your feud with the with Ronnie Garvin and Jimmy Garvin. What was it? It was called the St. John Baptist Day Massacre, right? Is that?
Yeah. The Massacre de Saint Jean. That was awesome. We had a match with them scheduled at the Montreal Forum in front of 18,000 people. And Precious, their manager, the blonde lady that came with, she had a can of spray in her hand. She came in front of me before the match trying to just distract me. And then finally she shot some spray into my eyes. And I just couldn't see anything after that. And so Raymond was stuck in the middle of the ring and they both jumped him. And then my father tried to come and help him. And then they beat up my dad, and Ronnie Garvin took him. Actually, Jimmy Garvin took my dad in a Boston Crab. And then Ronnie Garvin went up the top rope and gave a knee drop in the back of my father. And I was burning my eyes in the meantime. What an angle. And we never had a match. The match never started. Yeah. There was never a match. And the people were really pissed at the Garvins. And then about a month later, it was on the Saint Jean Baptiste Day. They called it the Massacre, where me and Raymond came in the best shape of our lives. And we kicked some butt.
Yeah.
But it was such a great feeling in front of our fans, but they were such talented wrestlers, and plus it was the brother team against the brother team. It meant so much, and what great workers. And as a matter of fact, Ronnie Garvin, like you said, he's doing a video. If you go on my website, you'll see the video where he's encouraging all the Canadian wrestlers, and what a great guy.
I think Ronnie Garvin is probably one of the most underrated wrestlers of all time. The Hands of Stone, his matches with Flair, like people just kind of let him slide under the radar. And I want him to get some more love in this business, because I don't think I've ever seen him have a bad match.
Never. And you know what? You're talking about the Hands of Stones, but it was really the slaps of stones too, I'll tell you, because me and him, we had some chop matches, boy, I'll tell you. Oh. And like with Greg the Hammer Valentine, I remember those days we used to chop each other to death. And just having those blood come out of the clots, but the Ronnie Garvin, definitely one of the most, the shortest, he's a short guy. He's not a big guy, but a machine. And he always kept coming, and short, but muscular and strong and very believable. And people believed in him as a tough guy, unlike Jimmy Garvin, who was more like an artiste,
Yeah, the pretty boy with the hair.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Yeah, but Ronnie, the Hands of Stone, what a great worker, and I love that guy. I really do.
Well, another really famous match that you guys had in that time period too was with another couple of real believable guys, the Road Warriors. What was it like being in there with those guys during that was their heyday when, Iron Maiden, Iron Man coming out, like crazy stuff.
Paul Ellering was with them. It was like, it was like, how can I say that? It was like we knew, of course, we're in the business. We knew it was a work. We knew that everything was pre-planned and stuff, but the Road Warriors were so intimidating, and the office, they build them so big in the eyes of the talent. Like, hey, these guys are coming in there and you got to put these guys over strong and you'll see that it's a new era and this and that. So we were so intimidated when we got in the ring. The first match I had with them was with my brother Armand, my other brother.
Okay.
And they took care of me in the match, but they didn't rough him up, but boy, Armand was happy when the match was over. and then I had a match with Joe LeDuc and tag team against the Road Warriors. But they always respected me, the Road Warriors. But to be honest with you, they were scary. In the 80s, when they came in, they were just so special, and there was a new era of the steroids, and so it's like you'd get in the ring and you'd see my little 18.5-inch arms, and which was big for a normal guy. But when you get into the ring with these guys and the picks coming out of their shoulder there, and ooh, what a rush! That thing, boy, I swear, I was a little afraid of him, especially Hawk. Animal was cooler, but Hawk was like he was in his own world.
The wild man.
Very, very intimidating to work against.
And you guys had some great matches. So when I was doing my research for this, I had something I didn't know, but did you spend some time in Stampede Wrestling during the really early days in your career with Stu?
And that's when I started. And actually, my first territory, it's funny because I'd start wrestling around the age of 15 years old in little backyard, maybe 50 people, 100 people. And then when I got to the age of 17, I decided it was time for me to hit the road. And I remember telling my dad, hey, I think I'm going to go to Calgary. I think I'd like to go to Calgary. There's a territory there and stuff. And so my dad had looked at me and he says, are you serious? You soaking wet, you weigh about 180 pounds. So it says, you're not ready for this. And I said, yeah, I'm ready, Dad. I'm a high flyer. I'm not a big monster, but I'm good in the ring. And so finally, my father didn't agree with it. So I went to see my mom without my dad knowing. And I borrowed $500 from my mom. And I called Stu Hart up. And it was so funny because when I called Stu, his father, I said, Mr. Hart? And he says, yeah. Who's this there? And I said, well, it's Jimmy Rougeau, Jacques Rougeau, but my English name is Jimmy. I said, Jimmy Rougeau, are you part of that Rougeau family there, Jacques and Johnny? And I said, yeah, it's my father and my uncle. Okay, we'll try you out there. And so I took the $500 of my mom and I flew to Calgary, and I stayed at the St. Regis Hotel where all the Indians and the whores were living at. It was a poor place, but I had to get something that was cheap, to survive. And it wasn't my kind of life at all, but that was the only place where I'd pay I think it was like $115 for the whole week. So I had to pay trans and everything. But then Bret was just driving the bus at the time. He wasn't even wrestling yet. He wasn't into wrestling. And what a great territory, because he had so much respect for my dad, Stu. And at the beginning, I thought because on Sundays, when we had a day off on Sundays, he was inviting me to go eat at his house with the I think it was 15 kids. I don't know, maybe there's a lot of them. And it was and about 20,000 cats. But anyway, so we got into the house, and he would always invite me on the Sunday to go have a lunch. But then I realized after a while that every time we'd finish lunch, or he'd say, you should come downstairs. There, we got a little dungeon down there, and we could see how you take care of yourself there. And I was going, and I'm an artiste, I never was a fighter in life. So I was always avoiding the dungeon downstairs. I never made it downstairs.
Smart man.
That's what I heard. But anyway, but what a great man and what a great family. And so that was my first territory. I went at the age of 17 years old, actually in 77. I was born in 60. So 77, I went there for about 3 months. And then from there, I came back to Montreal. And then I went back in 78 for another 3 months. And then from there, I went to Mexico at the age of 18. And then I went to, I started on the road doing all small territories. I went to Kansas City. I was going to Knoxville for the Fullers, the Grahams of Florida, and Pensacola for the Fullers. And then TBS with Ole Anderson and Tommy Rich and Wahoo McDaniel and Thunderbolt Patterson. And so I always went from territory. But you know, you never forget your first territory. And I remember Kazavubu, you probably don't know who he is, and Oki Shakina and John Foley, guys that were there, like veterans that were there at the Patty Ryan. I'm trying to think of all the guys that was there, Hubert Gallant. And but there was so much good talent, but friendly talent, you know. So it was a great place to start to really enjoy wrestling and to love what you're doing. And I'll always be thankful and grateful to Stu for what he did to me.
Yeah, Stu, we just love hearing Stu Hart stories, and your impersonation is up there with one of the best that we've heard on the show so far. So that was pretty bang on. That was pretty bang on.
I used to laugh at it so much when he wasn't there. I used to laugh at it so much. You know, I said, "Wow, this guy's a character," you know. But it was awesome, and it really was.
Well, and you've worked with some of the best promoters of all time. You know, you mentioned Stu there, and of course, probably the biggest promoter in the history of wrestling is Vince McMahon. What are some of your favorite stories about being around Vince, and how did you and your brother end up over in the WWF?
Well, you know, they were recruiting, and they were trying to get the best talent of all the territories and all the provinces and all the countries. And so we were lucky to be chosen there. And I remember the limousine picking us at the airport in LaGuardia, and then we went to Stamford, Connecticut to meet Vince. And I'll never forget the time where we were sitting there, and I finally got the nerves to ask him, like, you know, after listening to him, what he was proposing to us. And then I put my mind together, and then I asked him, I said, what are your plans with us, Vince? And then he looked at me and he says, the sky is the limit. And it was so funny because when he said that, the sky is the limit, me and Raymond were going like, wow, like this is like an actor going to Hollywood, you know, this is big time. And then I realized down the road there that a lot of guys were told the sky was the limit. but at the time, it was just amazing. And he was very, very, very impressive to be around. He was a very, very smart man. And he was a businessman. He knew how to make you feel good. He knew, so when it was good, it was good.
Absolutely. And, you know, we always hear about the famous Montreal Screwjob with Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, but a lot of people don't know there's a Montreal Screwjob before that involving you, your brother, and the Hart Foundation. I just kind of learned about this myself a couple of weeks ago, and it's unbelievable. I had no idea. Can you tell the story? What happened?
Yeah, and I'll tell you the story, and remind me to tell you that it happened to Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty in Texas too. So I will get, in case you didn't know that. But what happened was, like, they came the Harts into Montreal, and they wanted to give a little candy to the Montreal fans. So it's like me and Raymond, we beat the Hart Foundation, became the World Tag Team Champions, and we were baby faces. We had just come in the territory, so it was really. It was like winning a Stanley Cup against the Maple Leafs in Toronto. But anyway, it was awesome. There was 18,000 people. They were going nuts. People were banging on my car on the way out. And I remember at the time, my ex-wife, she kept saying, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. I said, don't worry, honey, they love us. Don't worry. But they were banging my car so hard. And what happened is about 3 days later, they put a little article in the Montreal newspaper, because there's 8 million people that live in Quebec at the time. And so they put a little article that says, because of the megaphone or because the wrong guy was in the ring, the Harts remain champions. So about maybe 100,000 people saw that article, but all the 7,900,000 who didn't see it, they couldn't wait to watch on Saturday on TV to see the Rougeaus come out with the belts, you know, to represent Quebec around the world. And here comes the Harts with the belts, and they never even acknowledged the fact that we won. Now, that was a screw job in Montreal, but it wasn't a screw job to us. It was to the fans, you know. And it was like, and then someone told me, as I was speaking about in a podcast recently, they told me that Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty had the same thing. So they did it. They just didn't do it here. They did it a bunch of places probably, and that's bad business.
That hurts the market, right?
I'm sorry?
Would that hurt the market? You're kind of disappointing the fans like that, right?
Yeah, I'm sure it did. I'm sure it did. But, they figured, they'll come around. They'll come around. But it hurt more me than it hurt the market because, I think that Raymond and I, we had great talent together in the ring. And I also think that we were well deserving of getting those titles. Maybe if it's only for 2 months, I don't care. But at least give us the chance to make our people proud in Montreal, Quebec, and in Quebec, that we represent them with the fleur de lis, the blue flag that we have on the blue sign that we have on our flag, and it wouldn't have hurt them nothing to let us have it for 2 months. So that was a real screw job in Montreal. Because Shawn Michaels doesn't come from here, and Bret doesn't come from here, and they called it the screw job in Montreal. But to be honest with you, the really screw job was that one there, and it was a very disappointed moment when people got on TV. Not only because that the Harts didn't acknowledge that we had beat them, it's more like they insulted the people's intelligence.
Yeah,
and that's where it hurt a lot.
Well, and even for you as well, you mentioned earlier you had the Intercontinental title for only 2 days and people still talk about it today. The titles were really, really valued back at that time. And, just saying that you and your brother were tag team champions really ups your ante as well, right?
Absolutely, our merchant value. But the good thing about the 2-day switch with the Intercontinental title is that Bret, who didn't want to drop the title to Piper, then they used me as an intermediate. For 2 days. But the good thing about it is it was a pay-per-view. So when I got on the pay-per-view against Piper, I was the Intercontinental champion. And like I said, now I go in Comic-Cons around the world. I go to signatures for the last 30 years, and everybody comes up to me with either a doll or a picture where I have the Intercontinental title. And Absolutely. I only had it for 2 days.
That's incredible.
So it would have helped us, Raymond and I, to have had the titles maybe for a couple of months. And then we would have had all our dolls and everything that we'd had with the belts. But that happened with Pierre-Carl Ouellet later as the Quebecers.
Yeah.
I had that opportunity. But it would have been great with Raymond because I don't think as of today that there's a better team, a brother team than my brother Raymond and I.
Absolutely.
And I was in the ring and Raymond, we'd been working 10 years together before coming to the WWF. So for me, it was so easy. I didn't even have to look behind me if I was doing a double team. So I knew Raymond where he was. I felt where he was because that was a brotherly sense that we had together.
Yeah.
But it was a great run with my brother Raymond. We had 4 years together in the WWF. So that was awesome.
Well, and you guys were so fluent in the ring, especially when you were being a babyface. But I think you guys really hit your stride when you got paired up with Jimmy Hart. And you're doing the All-American Boys, which great theme song, by the way.
We don't like heavy metal. We don't like rock and roll.
All we like to listen to is Barry Manilow. It's one of the best songs.
Up till today, I was in Wisconsin last week in Minneapolis. Atlanta went to Wisconsin for a nice WrestleCon. And everybody where I go, we don't like heavy metal. We don't like rock and roll. They say it's the greatest song of all the songs. That's their favorite one. I'm sure they tell Bret it's his favorite and everybody else, but they really remember that theme song. It was all Jimmy Hart because at the time in the 80s, Jimmy Hart wrote all the music of all the boys.
Yeah,
all the music. So he was in a group in the 50s called the Gentrys, like a real professional group where he was on the Soul Train and TBS, and you could see him across the country. And so he knew music, and that was a great asset for us to have Jimmy Hart. I say Jimmy Hart today, I always say it, he is the best manager that ever existed. And by far, not by far for the fans, because the fans, they say, oh, well, Bobby Heenan, Mr. Fuji, but by us. And now I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to justify what I'm saying here. If you take Bobby the Brain Heenan, he was smart. He'd get on an interview, he says, I know what my guy's going to do. And then you get Mr. Fuji. Mr. Fuji. But Jimmy Hart, he would never talk about himself. He would always say, let me tell you something. My man here is like this, and my man is like that. And for a wrestler that has a manager who values you so much and makes you feel so like, hey, Jimmy, you're making me feel like I'm really that person that you're talking about. He never talked about himself. And so that's the best asset of a manager, because when I go everywhere, I was, like I said, last week, I was with Jimmy in Wisconsin. And he introduced Greg the Hammer Valentine that was there, and yay, whoa, Bushwhacker Luke, And then he said the Mountie. I came in and he introduced me as the Mountie. And I took the microphone, and in front of all the people that were there, I just told them what I told you 2 minutes ago. I explained to them that he's the greatest manager of all time. And then I told them why. Yeah. And then when I told them why, that it was never him. It was always, he always wore a suit that would dress like for us, it was the Quebec flags. And for Dino, it was the Canadian. He always made you feel important, like you were and people, when I started saying that in Wisconsin last week, they were going like, and they start realizing it's true. Jimmy never said I'm this. It's always so, you know, for a wrestler. And that's why when I had him as a manager one time for 2 years with Raymond, that was one of the conditions when I came back as the Mountie. I said, I want Jimmy Hart as my manager.
That's smart.
Because he will make me look good. He's the one who makes me look good.
And the cool thing about Jimmy too, because I've had the privilege to meet him a few times myself, and he's the most humble, nicest human being you can meet. And if you take a look at his career, you know, all the stuff with Andy Kaufman in Memphis, his huge run with Hogan and with you guys in the WWF, like if he had a head that was this big, I would be like, that's cool, you've earned it. And you would never know all the cool stuff he's done. He's just such a humble, genuine guy.
And when I was in the ring last week in Wisconsin and I praised him in front of everybody, he turned red. He felt so bad. And then he told me after, he said, Jacques, don't do that anymore. Like, you know, I don't feel comfortable. What a great guy. What a great, humble guy, like you said. And he deserves so much more than a lot of people in the WWF.
100% he does. And you guys were having so much fun. I love the gimmick that you guys did about wanting to be the All-American boys, you know, because you get heat everywhere at that point, because us Canadians, we're mad at you because you're leaving us and you don't want to be here. And everyone in the States is going, well, we don't want you either. Like, whose idea was that? It was genius.
That was amazing. And you know what was amazing? The promos we were doing a lot, like you know, it was a Thanksgiving Day, you know, and then we'd say, hi, I'm Jacques. And I'm Raymond. And we're the fabulous Rougeau brothers. And we want to wish you a good Thanksgiving holiday. But it was Independence Week. It wasn't the right national. It wasn't, you know, so much heat, you know, with the interviews also. It was awesome. Yeah.
Oh, that's incredible. A couple of things that you've done a little bit recently as well. You were just recently on Dark Side of the Ring. You were on the Dynamite Kid episode. Now, I don't want to go over the Dynamite Kid story because I know you've told it a million times before and you've talked about it, but I'd like to talk about your experience with Dark Side of the Ring. How was it? How was the process with that? And then, you know, kind of after watching the whole episode and seeing what everybody said and hearing that, what's kind of like your final thoughts on the whole ordeal? Because, you know,
well, you know, thank you, Tyler. Nobody asked me that question that kind of way, and you're making me feel great about myself. And so did Dark Side of the Ring made me feel great about myself, because I had a lot of people that didn't like me in the dressing rooms for different reasons. For one reasons, like when the guys would come to wrestle in Canada, they'd look at the booking sheet and they say, "Oh no, not Canada again," because every time they came to wrestle to Canada, they couldn't bring any drugs in. And then plus they lost 40% on the dollar, you know, like, you know, when they made $1,000 there, it was $600 in the States. But us, it was the opposite. We made $1,000 in the States. We come back home, it was like 1,400 Canadian.
Yeah.
You know, so a lot of the guys didn't like that. So I had a lot of heat. And another time in the dressing room, one guy, I'm not going to mention his name, he in front of all the boys, he said, because me and Raymond and Dino and Martel, we were speaking French. It's our native language. It's easy for us. And we speak in French. And he went in front of everybody and says, "Hey, why don't you speak fucking English here?" And I looked at him and I said, "Screw you. Like, you know, why don't you tell that to Pedro Morales and Tito Santana when they're speaking Spanish, you know, or, you know, if you have a problem with that, then it's your problem. I'm not talking about you guys. It's just, so I always took offense when people would degrade Canada or Quebec or my language. And so a lot of guys didn't like that, because I spoke up to them and I said my piece because it was so important to me. And so a lot of the guys, when Dynamite hit me from behind and a week later I made my comeback, you know, a lot of people were spreading wrong rumors. Like, I heard that the two Rougeaus beat up the Dynamite, which is bullshit. There was two. Yes, there was me and my roll of quarters that I had in my hands, but that's about it. And I had to do something that was so horrible because I'm not a fighter in life. I'm an entertainer. So I was put in a position that I was going to become the McFly of the Back to the Future in the WWF, but they were going to abuse me and everybody. So I had to stick up for myself. So a lot of guys were lying about the stories. And 30 years later, Dark Side of the Ring, they approached me and they want to have that segment And I'm like, okay. So we tape this in maybe in November, example, and it showed maybe in the spring. But for the 5-6 months, because I spoke for 3 hours and they only showed like 6 minutes of it. But for 3 hours I spoke. And I know how you could put things out of context. You could take something that's said there and put it here, and it doesn't sound at all of what I said. Mm-hmm. So for 6 months, I was inside. I was worried, concerned. But when it came out, they really gave me credit for what happened, and they really told the truth. And 30 years later, and because I felt such a trauma after that event, you know, when he beat me up in the dressing room, I wanted to quit the business. He was bullying. He was a big bully. And so when this came out, now if you look at if you go on wrestling-academy.ca, you have Lanny Poffo, who's putting a nice word in for the contestants. But it's so funny. He goes like this and he says, well, I want to thank Jacques Rougeau, the $1 million punch, you know. And it's like, I go like, no, Lanny, don't say that.
Wrong way.
but I don't want to talk about it no more. But it made me feel good because I cleaned my reputation, you know, and I cleaned the haters and a lot of people that weren't. So now they saw the story. So now everywhere I go, I'm almost considered like a hero who stopped bullying. As a matter of fact, so much that when I quit the business and with Vince, when I started my own company in Montreal for 20 years with my sons, I was doing I was going in classes in schools. Like I almost did every school in the province of Quebec to show the kids in front of 600, 700, 800 people. I have conferences where I would tell them, I'd show them how to stop bullying without using violence, just by being together and helping each other. And now it's amazing because just 2 days ago, in Montreal, there's a big day coming up on the 23rd in Canada. Right. Yeah. It's called the Pink Shirt Day. And they came and they chose me as spokesman to talk. And I'm going to talk to 4 schools on Wednesday on Zoom. And they're all going to be listening to me. And I'm going to tell them about bullying, how to avoid bullying. But they chose me as a spokesman. And so many, many great things happened because of that incident that was the worst in my life. But I always say, people who give conferences like I did for 20 years, you know, when I started that, people were saying, Jacques Rougeau's trying to get good publicity in this. They didn't know what they were saying, because the truth is I was in therapy. Every time I went to give a class and I'd come out and I'd help the kids, and I'd have some that would come cry at the end to come see me crying. And this guy's bullying me. So I'd go with the principal and I'd sit down with the problem and I'd fix it. You know, I'd have fun doing that. Well, that was therapy for me. And so that came out of that, which is really good. And now the reputation that I have for them in Quebec now to ask me to be spokesman for that, it's like, hey, because it's always sick people that help people. It's always someone that got hurt by an incident in his life that's going to turn around. And so now people know that I wasn't doing that to get publicity. I was doing that to do therapy for my own little brain that was squashed and that I was traumatized out of that thing that happened.
Yeah, I think that's what's so good too about the Dark Side show is that you got to hear from everybody. You know, you heard from his family, you heard your story. So there's no more what ifs and lies and BS. The truth is out there now. And I'm glad that you got your piece with that and that you were able to turn that around and now do something so wonderful with all these speaking engagements, because that's a hard thing to do for people. I don't think they realize that.
And you know, if people knew just how many, before that week where I did my comeback, you know, if people would only knew how much this close I came to leaving the business and just tell my brother Raymond, I'm quitting. I don't want this no more because this is not the world I want to live in. But I stuck in there because of my father, and my father was my hero. And, you know, I didn't want to disappoint my dad, you know, because the Rougeau tradition, the Rougeau family was such a big name. I didn't want to leave like a McFly or leave like a wimp.
McFly.
And so it was so hard for me to fight because I'm not a fighter. So I had to go against a bully who's on steroids and who has a reputation that follows him for the last 2 years of breaking some guys in the dressing room, just breaking them where they quit the business. And that was such a giant step for a little guy like me, you know, so now when I look back at that, I don't know where I found the nerves or where I'm sure it's because of my dad, you know, but I couldn't eat for a week. Every time I'd eat, I'd throw up, and because I knew I had to do a comeback or leave with the head between my tail, you know, the tail between my legs. So it was a big event in life. But now, thankfully, today, I've helped a lot of people because of that. I'm still helping people, and I feel great about myself. So thank you, Dark Side of the Ring. Thank you very much.
That's excellent to hear. So I'm going to follow this up now. This might be the hardest hitting question I'm going to ask you the whole interview here, okay? So I'm just going to give you a heads up. Which theme song do you like better, the Mountie or the Rougeau brothers? Because they're two of the best of all time. I know it's a tough one.
You know what? It's almost like someone told me one time, they said, Jacques, which tag team partner did you like the most? Being with Pierre Carlot, the Quebecers, or with my brother Raymond? If we put these two teams in the ring now, who do you think would win? And I answered, the guy said, me. But so it's like, if you're asking me which tune I like the most, I love them both. You know, they were different eras. One was more like, nerds, but it was so nerdish and fun and entertaining. But the other one was so like, I'm handsome, I'm brave, I'm strong. Which was not. But it was like, I enjoyed both of them. And, and when I go, like I said, Comic Cons around the world or things like that, both songs, they come up, a lot. People they seem to like more the Fabulous Rougeau one, of heavy metal and rock and roll and all this stuff. But for me, they were both really good. So if you ask me which one of the both or which one I like between the two of them, if I answered honestly, I don't know.
There's no wrong answer. They're both legendary themes, right?
I don't know. Because when I was singles, it was a Mountie. But when I was tag team, it was me and Raymond. So it was like it was two different things. But thank you so much for bringing this up, because it brings back a smile to my face when I think of these. And even we went as far as when we weren't the Mounties anymore. Carl and I were the Quebecers. We had the song, We're Not the Mounties.
Yeah, you guys got heat from the RCMP, right?
Well, at the point, and this is some subject that I like to talk about, especially in Canada, I think that the RCMP in Canada, they fucked up.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why they fucked up, because, how many times in life have I sat down in front of a movie and I saw a dirty cop in the movie? Well, all the other cops didn't say, hey, we're going to ban this movie because you're giving us a bad image, I think it was high time that the Mounties got off their horse, because there's a difference between theater and entertainment and the real life. So what happened is when I was doing my TV tapings, like in the States, everywhere, and the Canadian Mounties took a lawsuit against the WWF where they weren't allowed to show the Mountie anymore on TV. So when I do the tapings in the States, well, a lot of times I weren't on the tapings because the tapings that they would do were distributed around the world. So there's only those two tapings. So they cost me my job as the Mountie. They really did. And Lord knows, it was only entertainment. And the funniest thing at the time, my brother-in-law, he was a Mountie. So he's the one who got me my boots, my suit and everything. And he kept telling me the whole time of my running, because man, the Mounties, my partners, my friend, they love this gimmick. They're just having fun with it. Well, where the top notches or owners of the RCMP, they were looking up like snobbish a bit, like it's wrestling and you're giving us a bad image. I'll talk about a bad image. I don't know if you remember that first vignette I did. It was amazing. The first vignette I did before I came in as the Mountie character on the road with everybody for 5 weeks, they were showing vignettes on TV. Like Mean Gene was sitting with Jesse the Body Ventura on the ring, and they'd say, hey, Mean Gene coming to the WWF soon as the Mountie. So let's go see this guy. So they had vignettes, and one vignette was so awesome. I still laugh when I say it, and it comes from my heart. I'm sitting on my horse in a park, and this car comes. I'm in Montebello here, and it's in Quebec. So, and I'm on my horse, and I got this arrogant look. I got the black glasses, and cocky look in my face, and I'm sitting on my horse in the park, and this car pulls up beside me, and it's supposed to be two Americans, about your age, the two Americans that pull up beside me, but it wasn't. It was two Canadians. They were just extras. So anyway, they come with this car, and they pull up beside me. So the American puts his window down with his girlfriend beside him, and he says, excuse me, officer. Excuse me, officer. And I'm on my horse, and I look down. I'm not an officer. I'm the Mountie. So the guy looks at me like all scared and shit. So he looks at his girlfriend and says, I think I got a wacko one here beside me. So he looks up to me and he says, excuse me, Mr. Mountie, can you tell me how to get back to the USA? We're lost. So I look down to him, and then slowly I put my leg off my horse, and I get up slowly, and I get in front of his window and say, "Come here." So the guy looks at his girlfriend says, "Come on, get out." So the chicken, he's afraid to get out. So anyway, so he follows me, and I say, "Come here." So I bring him in front of my horse. And when I get in front of my horse, I pick my horse up like this, the mouth of my horse, the whole mouth. And I say, "You see that part of my horse? That always points to Canada. Come here." So I start walking towards the back. And when I get to the back, I lift the tail of the horse up, and you can see the ass. And the camera's right in that big nugget, the big donut. And it's right there. And I say, "You see this part of my horse? It always points to the USA."
That's absolutely amazing.
The Mounties, the big bosses of the Mounties, didn't appreciate my hospitality. So that was just amazing. That was funny. And that vignette went around for 5 weeks. And I remember when I first started the gimmick live, my first 3 towns, the Spectrum in Philadelphia, the Boston Gardens, and Nassau Coliseum in Long Island. And those were the 3 roughest places. We'd go wrestle in the gardens there, and they'd have a barbed wire around the ring because people were throwing stuff in the ring. But when I got to the first time where the ramp of the hockey players in back of the building go down, it was still outside. All the fans at 1 o'clock in the afternoon or 2 o'clock, they're all lined up to see their superstars arrive. And the first time I got off, I got on the car and bang, bang, and I started bleeding. People throwing rocks at me, and I was saying, shit. So for about a month, I had real cops bring me to the building, because I had too much heat. They just didn't have a sense of humor, I guess.
Oh.
but what a great time. What a great time.
I think one of the best matches and one of the most famous matches you had is the Mountie, obviously SummerSlam 91 with the Big Boss Man. Can you share some Big Boss Man stories? I haven't had the chance to speak to anybody that's gotten to work with Ray, the Boss Man there. And I would just love to hear what he was like as a person, because he was such a great worker.
Night after night, we'd get in that ring with that big old 300-pound guy, and he would weigh a feather. He would take care of you. He would lie you down straight. He would hurt himself, make sure that you weren't hurt when he put you down. We had fun, and I was pretty much the same kind of guy. I was brought up in a 3rd generation of wrestling where you learn basics before start to run. In the ropes, you learn how to protect your opponent and stuff. So Ray Traylor, not only that, he was like an Owen Hart. He was a guy that was always laughing, always having good times. Me and him were like this, and we wrestled around the world for building up to that fatal match there, where I was collecting wins and he was coming around the side looking at me, and then he'd collect wins and I'd go around the ring pointing at him and then it was getting closer and closer where we finally met for but what a great Lord rest his, how do you say that? Rest in peace.
Rest in peace.
But he was one of the nicest guys in the business. I never seen Ray Traylor have an argument with the wrestler in the dressing room. He got along. He was so kind and so nice. And then again, he had that toughness in the ring in his character, but that wasn't him at all. And if it was, I never met him. I never met that side of him. He was a great guy.
Oh, that's fantastic. And not too long after that, you and Pierre formed the Quebecers. You're winning the tag team titles a couple times, which was fantastic. Highly entertaining run there with Johnny Polo. Kind of question I had, though, is when I was doing my research, I noticed a real quick title change that you guys did with Men on the Mission over in Europe. Was that something that was planned for
we actually won the titles 3 times. We beat the Steiners, and we beat the Moms, and we beat the 1, 2, 3 Kid with Marty Jannetty. And we did some switches like that. A lot of times they'd switch them back, but within that year, we were 3 times tag team champions within a year and a half. But the greatest thing about the Quebecers was the first night that we came in, the first night in Manhattan Center, we took the belts on the first night in a no DQ match where you weren't allowed to go off the top rope and stuff. They had the Quebec rules,
the Quebec province rules, right?
Yeah. And it was but we became champions on the first night, and wow, you talk about our notoriety just go up because hey, for them it was fun because they were seeing us on TV every week, come with the belts on. So even if we were heels and stuff like that, we had great maneuvers as tag teams. We had taken 5 months in my backyard before coming to WWF, where Carl would drive an hour and a half from his home to come to my house, and we'd practice 3-4 times a week these moves, like the big tower I did when I held him up on the top rope. No, not the cannonball. He'd give me his hands, and then he'd do a handstand.
Yeah.
And you know, I'd have him land, but I had to judge, and so we had a dummy in the ring for 5 months, where not a person now, a dummy, like a real dummy. And we'd have to practice, and I'd have to make sure that the top of his shoulders landed exactly, because if I made his ass land on the guy, he was 300 pounds, Carl, I would have killed the guy. And although I think we killed 1 or 2, but not by purpose. But it was like so those maneuvers we practiced, and we used almost every move we did him, and we need to be 2. Like the leg sweep, he'd run the ropes for a clothesline, but I'd be on my knees, and as soon as the clothesline I would sweep the feet off from underneath him. And we had moves like slam him. I used to pick up Carl, my own partner, and body slam him on my opponent. So we practiced moves that were completely different. It was like when we came in, they were saying it's a different era, almost like the Bulldogs when they came in. They were so spectacular, like Demolition when they came in. They were so spectacular, and so you had some teams that trademarks that were different to just a wrestler tag team match, and so that was amazing. The Quebecers, I had a great time with Carl.
It's crazy that he's still going at the pace that he's going at now, and he's totally reinvented himself again with this PCO character. Like, oh man, tip of the cap to what he's doing right now.
He's a tough son of a gun, I'll tell you, because I've seen him in matches to take bumps over the top rope and land on a cement floor, and he was like Gumby, you know, that little green guy there. He just boom, 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 get right back up like nothing ever happened. I was looking at him like, holy shit, this guy's not going to last for 10 years in the business. And now he's 50 years old, and he's still going, and he's still doing this crazy thing. So power to him. Power to him.
Well, and, you know, I kind of want to keep on the topic of Carl there, and I want to kind of merge it in with a building that must be very special to you. You talked about a little bit earlier, the Montreal Forum. You know, you guys packed about 16, 17,000 people in there, and you had your brother Ray in the corner, and it was versus Carl and Johnny Polo in his corner. You came out with the Queen entrance music. Can you kind of take us back to that night? It just seemed like it must have been a real special night for you.
Well, when we had WrestleMania 10 with the moms, and we had this screw job from Vince to me, where he promised us for 4 months that we were going to beat the moms at WrestleMania. That's what was our big falling out of me and Vince, actually. And when we got the 1 hour before the show, and we'd been beat everywhere in the world, Carl and I, like by even middle guys, like 1, 2, and it was hard on us. But then they kept telling us, don't worry, guys, because when we get back to WrestleMania 10, you're going to beat the moms with your big move, and you're going to get all your recognition and your street value back up. So, but an hour before the match, we were told by Pat, that Pat came to see me, and he says, Jacques, he says, listen, he says, we're thinking about doing something just a little different, the DQ or something. I said, what do you mean? He says, well, because, you know, he says, if we beat the moms tonight, he says, what's going to be left for them? And I was saying, well, I don't give a shit. Yeah. I like the moms. But for 4 months, we've been squashed by middle guys, you know, and stuff, because you told us that we're going to win our credibility back. So that was our falling out. So then I went to see Vince in the dressing room. And I said, Vince, I said, up to where do you have me booked? So he took his big book out. And for 2 months, I was finishing Israel, I think, in Tel Aviv. So I said, okay. So I said, don't book me after that. I said, I'm finishing there, but I said, I'll have one more match with Carl in Montreal. So when we dropped the titles, because we'd won the titles by DQ, we kept the titles. I said, when we dropped the titles to the head shrinkers, I said, I want to do something in Montreal. I want us to drop them, and I want Carl to turn on me, you know, once we, and so that was my thing. And it was like my goodbye match with Carl. But then again, I quit with Vince, and we took all the time in the world. We brought the ring up behind my house again, and we prepared one of the greatest matches that in singles that Montreal has ever seen. And because it was script for 5 months, we had time to really polish it and work it every week. And so when we got to that match, and there was 18,000 people in that place, and it was supposed to be one of my retirement matches. I had 3 of them. So anyway, but you know, I didn't know passion was so hot in me about wrestling. But anyway, and you know, when I'm pissed off, I'm pissed off. When I'm disgusted, it's like it's the end of the world. Me, it's like it's black. There's no gray. It's white or black. And at the time, I was convinced it was my retirement match. And so all this to say that we had that great match, and Carl came up with this finish that was amazing, where he goes to give me like a reverse, almost like a tombstone, like Undertaker used to do, except I used to start, when I was up there, I start shaking my legs, and he starts going back with me like this, and my feet go and reach the ground, and I pick him up in a reverse pile driver, and I beat him like that.
Yeah.
And people went nuts, and people really went crazy, and that was considered one of my greatest single matches in Montreal. So that was amazing, yeah.
And perhaps maybe your greatest singles match in Montreal might have been a couple years later against Hollywood Hogan. That was a big night as well. You didn't see Hogan doing a lot of clean losses at that time. How did this all come to be? Is this kind of, I've heard stories that Hulk really is respectful to people in their hometowns and really likes to give them that extra push in their hometown. Did being in Montreal have something big to do with you and Hulk doing business together there?
You know, I think it was a combination of a few things. I was always a professional. I was there for 10 years opening shows for Hulk many times. And you know, a lot of people don't know this, but they always think the main event is the most important match of the night, but it's not. The most important match of the night is the first one. Because if you go out and you have a great first match, people are into it. So it just builds. But if you put your first match out there and it's a shitty match, people don't believe in what they saw, then it takes 2 or 3 matches for them. So I think Hulk had respect for everything we've done in 10 years. I also think that the fact that I stopped the bullying with the Bulldog, you know, because he lost a lot of friends, Hulk, that were bullied by the Bulldog and just quit the business. And he was afraid too. He never said it, but everybody was afraid of the Bulldogs because they were on drugs and substances and steroids and drinking and all this mix. They were pretty loud plus obnoxious. So I think in somewhere Hulk was protected because he was the icon and everything. The Bulldogs never messed with him, but I still think that he was hoping that his day would never come. So when I stopped the bullying, it completely stopped. And he knew what it took. So when I had my match in Montreal, and plus I was the one who brought WCW to Montreal. My lawyer, Cookie Lazarus, he put $250,000 up to get the publicity, to rent the Molson Center, the whole building. And he was all behind. He got a TV deal for TBS, you know, for WCW in Montreal. It was their first. And then we were opening the first show. So Eric Bischoff and was the boss of WCW. But Hulk was the boss. You know what I mean? Yeah. There was 2 bosses there. Like there was one boss, but Hulk, he knew he was the man. NWO, he was at the prime of his career with Razor Ramon and Diesel and all that. They were really hot with the NWO. So I think that there was an ego thing between them too. And I thought there was a little problem between them. So I just came in and I offered to Hulk. I said, hey, Hulk, I said, I have an opportunity to get you guys on TV. I have an opportunity to bring you into Montreal, which WWF had the exclusivity, and it was a little bit of a vengeance for me too. And I said, the only thing I'm asking, I'd like to work with you. You know, I wanted to be the legend, the match of the legends, the Quebec legend against the world legend. You know, and he says, yep, I'll do it. When he said yes, I freaked out. And then when we got to Montreal, he got into the dressing room in front of everybody, all the boys, the Harlem Heat, Ric Flair, Dean Malenko, all the guys, the big guys were there, and he says, okay, boss, what are we doing tonight? He says that to me. You know, I'm looking at him like, that's funny. You know, that's really funny. And then everybody was laughing too. And then he says, I'm not kidding, brother. It's your show. He said, what are we doing? He says, how do you want to beat me?
Wow.
And then I went like, you're very funny, Hulk. You're very, very funny. I got to give it to you. You're very funny. He said, I'm serious, brother. I said, okay. I said, you're serious. He says, I'm serious, brother. I said, okay. I said, well, why don't you beat me up the whole match and I'll just small package you at the end. I want him to look so good. And that came upon that. And I remember after that match, we were in the dressing room. When I came back out of the match, I just got the win, the clean pinfall on him. No gimmicks, no nothing. There were no ropes, no manager, no nothing. And I got back in the dressing room, and there was none of the boys left in the dressing room. They were all gone. like they didn't want to see it, they didn't want to see me, because a lot of guys wanted to beat Hulk before me, and they didn't have the chance. So it was like, I guess that's what it was. So anyway, I'm standing in front of the mirror in the dressing room, and then I'm a little swollen up a bit. We had a little rugged match. I think he must have changed his mind when he came out, because when I came out, I had 99% of the people booing me in my hometown. I didn't expect that. That went over my head. And then when he came out, NWO and everything, it was a riot. So I'm sure when he was getting all this ovation and stuff, he was probably saying, what the hell did I do to say that I was going to get beat by this jabroni, But anyway, so the match is pretty rough. And then when I got in front of the dressing room, I'm looking at the mirror like this, and he walks in, and he comes in, and he says, "You okay, brother?" And I looked at him and says, "Yeah." "You okay?" He says, "Yes, sir." So he turns around to walk out. I said, "Hey, Hulk." And then he turns back around and says, "Why'd you do that?" He says, he thought maybe I was thinking about being stiff a bit. But I say, I wasn't talking about that at all. I said, "Why'd you do that?" He looks at me, he says, "Eddie Auger, Johnny and Jacques Rougeau, Raymond, Jacques Armand Rougeau." He says, everything that the Rougeau brothers and the Rougeau family did in Montreal, he says, that's why I did it.
Wow.
And what a great man. But I also then remember Jimmy Hart coming right after. He just came right after Hulk left, and he says, "Jacques," he says, "it's not true." He says, "Because of what you did to the Bulldog." But Jimmy Hart told me that, and not Hulk. But it was like, so there's a mix of a lot of reasons, I think, of coincidence, timing, him being pissed off at Bischoff or whatever it was. There was a bunch of things, a bunch of factors that made it that my notoriety went from here to just like that. So every time I was doing a promo, every time I do a conference, and everywhere, I always brought the footage of where I beat Hulk Hogan, the biggest icon of wrestling. So
100%.
so I used it, and I overused it because it was such a great thing that happened to me.
That's incredible. I want to be respectful of your time here, so I'm going to kind of start wrapping up, asking my last couple questions here. When I was doing my research again for this, is it true that you guys had a dark match in the WWE with you, Pierre, and Raymond all teaming together? Is that something that happened? No,
because Pierre didn't exist when me and Raymond were there.
Yeah,
Pierre, when Raymond left the business, I became the Mountie, and then after the Mountie, I quit, and then we became the Quebecers. Carl was just wrestling in Puerto Rico. Okay. He was wrestling some more indies like that, and he'd been trying to get in the WWF for 10 years. And then he came to me, and he asked me, I was on the beach that day. I was wrestling Abdullah that night in main event, and he was in the first match. And he came to see me on the beach, tapped on my shoulder, and he said, "Hey, Mr. Rougeau." And he says, "My name is Carl Ouellet," but he said it in French. So I look at him and said, "C'est pas français." And then he looked at me. So we start talking. I hit it off right away when he's starting to speak French. He's a guy from my home. And then he says, "I'm just going to ask you one thing, Jacques." He says, "Could you watch my match tonight?" And I said, "Sure." So I got into the building, and I was on late, so I didn't even dress up yet for my suit. I went to see his match. I was so impressed. And then when he came back at his match, before I started dressing for my match with Abdullah, I told him, I said, "Hey, listen, let me get home. Give me 4 days and call me back." He says, "I may have something for you." Because on the beach, he told me for 10 years he's been sending tapes, try to get into the WWF. And almost like I'm saying to you about my wrestling academy, where I've been at the right place, the right time, and knowing the right people, and so I told him, I said, "Call me in 4 days." And in the meantime, when I got home, I called Vince, and I'd been off for like 6 months, 8 months. So I was ready to get back on the action. So I called Vince up and I said, "Vince," he says, "Yes, Jacques." I said, "I think I got something for you." I said, "I'd like to come back with this guy. He's a great, great talent. And I think me and him, he's French, we could do something really good together." And that's when, about 3 months later, or 5 months later, because we practiced for 5 months in my backyard, I called him up one day. I said, "Hey, Vince, I think we're ready." So he says, "Okay." So he flew us in that taping at the Manhattan Center. And on the first night, we took the belts against the Steiners. The first night. So what a change of career for Carl, too.
And the rest is history, right?
So Carl was never in the business before when I was the Mountie or when I was the Fabulous Rougeau brothers. So it's impossible for us three to have worked together.
I thought it would have been a cool moment if all three of you guys could have done something together.
Yeah. It would have been cool if we had a 5 against 5.
Yeah.
Me, Raymond, Carl Ouellet, and Dino Bravo and Ricky Martel.
Yeah. Ricky Martel. Can you give us a quick Ricky Martel story? We're huge fans of him on the show.
Yeah, but everybody should be a huge fan of him. I mean, what a great athlete! What a charismatic. He was just a great athlete all around. He did so much with AWA, I think, or with the Greg Gagne and the Vert Gagne out in Minneapolis, and he was champion there, world champion in that federation. And what a good-looking guy. You know, I was always jealous of that guy. You know, he looked so good. You know, I was always saying to myself, if he had my talent and I had his looks, boy, we'd sure make a great wrestler. You know, and because but I was, you know, this is my thought. But I'm saying that if I would have had his looks, you know, with the way I worked, I think I'd had a bigger push, because he was just, the girls were just freaking, you know, they just loved him, you know, and him and Tito Santana, even, that was long lived, but it was they were called the
Strike Force.
Strike Force, that's right. And but the girls were going nuts. They both had white tights, beautiful tans, beautiful bodies, you know. So yeah, Rick Martel for me was one of the greatest talents that we produced in Quebec.
And of course, I can't have you on here without talking about another legend from that time period, the Boss, Andre the Giant. Any great Andre stories? Maybe after hours with Andre?
No, not after hours, all day long. Because, you know, me and him, there was only a few guys. I don't know if you know the game of cribbage.
Yeah.
You know, where you peg 15-2, 15-4 and all that. And my mom had taught me when a very young age, but very young people knew that game. It was more like the old timers that knew that. And Andre was one of the best players. And when I saw him play one time with Arnold Skolin, I'd seen him through my whole career, because my father was a promoter, so he'd come and wrestle Montreal, and he spoke French, so everything clicked with Andre. He always liked me. I used to go get his hot dogs in the dressing room and popcorn, and he saw me from a kid. And then I met him on the road when I went, like I was saying, to Kansas City, to Pensacola. He'd come in like Flair. They'd come in once a month for the big main events and stuff. And so Andre, we had an appartenance together, and it's like, so apart from that, when I saw him play cribbage with Arnold Skolin, the agent, Arnold Skolin, and then I told Andre one time, I said, hey, I'll kick your ass, you know, in crib. And, so we started playing, and man, we were competitive with one another. So what would happen is, like, every time that we'd fly 25 days a month. So every time we were flying in flights, he was always in first class, but the seat beside him could never be sold because he's so big. You know, he was taking almost 1 foot out of the other seat there. So they'd never sell the seat beside him. So every time we take off, we were always in economy, all the boys, the jabronis there. But up front, you know, he was in first. And it was so funny because every time the flight attendant would come in the back and she'd say, Jacques Rougeau? And I'd say, yes. Okay, you're asked up front. So I'd fly first class and we play cribbage, you know, me and Andre. So yeah, he was my great partner of cribbage. So I love the guy. I always loved the guy. Unfortunately, he didn't love himself anymore at the end. And he was very upset with the way people were looking at him, like, look at that monster. Look at that freak. And finally, I think it caught up with him in the bottle, and he was starting drinking in the morning. We'd get on the flights. He was very... he was mean to the people sometimes. I didn't like that because I was always so good to the people. And sometimes I'd be playing cribbage, and then somebody'd come up then just for an autograph. Very so polite to, excuse me, Mr. Andre, gonna get lost. I'd go like, okay, oh shit. You know, I felt bad because it's not like me. But he was miserable. And he was tired to be pointed out like a freak and like a monster. So I think he just put a cage around him, and he got into his own world. And but me, souvenirs of that man, you know, I have so many. I could spend the whole podcast on telling you stories about him, you know. But he was for me, he was one of my great friends. That from my young age, 4 years old, all the way up to when he passed away, I was always the greatest respect for that guy.
Wow, that's incredible. And that just means we're gonna have to have you on for a part 2 sometimes to hear more of these stories, right?
I enjoyed your podcast. Thank you very much.
That's so good. And I was going to say, Jacques, I can't thank you enough for the time. And I think I can speak on behalf of pretty much every wrestling fan that's ever seen you work that we need to see in the WWE Hall of Fame. So let's do what we can to make that happen, because, you know, you're one of the greatest performers of all time, and your family, especially from us over here in Canada, you know, the Harts, the Rougeaus, the Vachons, all legends. And it's just been such an honor to get to talk to you. Before we wrap up here, please, again, talk about everything that you got going on and your social media, where we can find you, about the Wrestling Academy, everything.
Thank you so much, Tyler, and I appreciate that so much. You're so kind. I got to tell you about the Hall of Fame. I think that everybody I worked with for months and months and years, they're all in the Hall of Fame. And I think that Vince, if I had a message to send to him, if ever it gets to him, it's like, Vince, you shouldn't choose your Hall of Famers by the relationship personally you have with them, but by the talent and what they gave to you in the business. And on the other hand, I want to just on a positive note to tell everybody, go on wrestling-academy.ca. And, you know, I used to see when I follow The Voice a lot and stuff, and I see things on YouTube, and it's so funny because I always hear at the end of an interview, please subscribe and press the button. And I'm going like, leave me alone. And now I'm the one doing it. So go on wrestling-academy.ca, subscribe, and you'll be able to get the notifications. And when we start this in May, you will be able with your phone to text in and vote who you want to keep and who you want to leave. And of course, it's a national competition. It's from everybody in Canada. You have a bunch of your folks. We've got 12 guys and girls coming from Ontario, which out of the 42. So subscribe to wrestling-academy.ca and vote for them and keep them alive and keep this whole project alive.
Absolutely. And we're going to be pushing this really hard on our website as well. So you can check that out there. Once the show starts up, Mike and I are going to be talking about this thing every week. So maybe we'll reach out and get you back on for
I'll be there for you guys.
Perfect. Well, again, Mr. Rougeau, we cannot thank you enough for joining us today.
Thank you very much. It's been a really fun time.